testify, there is also a white sheet on the table if you do not wish to testify but would like to record your position on a bill. The sheet will be included as an exhibit in the official hearing record. If you are not testifying in person on a bill and would like to submit a position letter for the official record, all committees have a deadline of 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, the last working day before the hearing. Please note that position letters to be included in the official records must be submitted by way of the legislature's website at nebraskalegislature.gov. A new feature of the website allows testifiers with disabilities to submit testimony for the record on the site. The website will be the only method for the submission of letters for the record other than testifying in person. Letters and comments submitted by the way of email or hand delivered will no longer be included as part of the hearing record, although they are a viable option for communicating your views with an individual senator. Keep in mind that you may submit a letter for the record on the website or testify at a hearing, but not both. We will begin each bill hearing today with the introducer's opening statement, followed by proponents of the bill, then opponents, and finally by anyone speaking in the neutral capacity. We will finish with a closing statements by the introducer. If they wish to give one, we ask that you begin your testimony by giving your first and last name and spell them for the record. If you have copies of your testimony, please bring up at least 10 copies and give them to the page. If you are submitting testimony on someone else's behalf, you may submit it for the record, but will not be allowed to read it. We'll be using a 5-minute light system. When you begin your testimony, the light on the table will turn green. The yellow light is your 1-minute warning. And when the red light comes on, we ask you to wrap up your final thoughts and stop. As a matter of committee policy, I'd like to remind everyone the use of cell phones and other electronic devices is not allowed during the public hearing. Although you may see senators use them to take notes or stay in contact with staff, I would ask everyone to look at their cell phones and make sure they're in the silent mode. Some senators will be using their laptops to pull up documents and follow along with each bill. You may notice committee members coming and going. That has nothing to do with how they regard the importance of the bill under consideration. Senators may have bills coming up to introduce in other committees or other member meetings to attend. And with that, I will have the committee members introduce themselves, starting with Senator Clements.
Rob Clements, District 2.
Thank you. My name is Teresa Iba. I represent District 44, which is 8 counties in southwest Nebraska.
Good afternoon, Danielle Conrad, North Lincoln.
Thank you. I will turn it over to Senator Abel.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator McDonnell. When you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Mike McDonnell, McDonnell. I represent Legislative District 5, South Omaha. Thank you for allowing me to open on LB 160, which is intended to increase the supplemental retirement plan benefit for law enforcement officers employed by Nebraska counties which participate in the County Employment Retirement Plan. I want to start by explaining the why of this bill. I think we are all aware of by now that our law enforcement agencies in Nebraska are experiencing serious issues in recruiting and retaining officers. Over the last few years, the legislature has passed several common sense bills that are helping with this issue. LB 160 is another tool that law enforcement agencies, specifically our county sheriff's departments, can use to attract and retain officers. LB 160 accomplishes that by making the recruitment benefits available to sheriff's department employees more competitive with those that are offered by other types of law enforcement agencies. Let me explain how the system works now. Currently, Nebraska counties that participate in the county plan are required to contribute 4.5% of the employee's compensation into the county plan. Additionally, commissioned law enforcement officers in counties that participate in the county plan are entitled to supplemental benefit on top of the 4.5%. In counties with a population over 85,000, which is just Sarpy County, the supplemental benefit requires employees to contribute an additional 2% of compensation, which requires the county to contribute an additional 2% of compensation. In all other counties, the supplemental benefit requires employees to contribute an additional 1% of compensation and requires the county to contribute an additional 1% of compensation. I'm going to pause here to make an important point. Douglas and Lancaster counties do not participate in the county plan. LB 160 would not affect the retirement contributions in those counties. What I'm proposing to do in LB 160 is straightforward. Increase the supplemental retirement benefit by 1% on both the employee and the employer's side. In Sarpy County, the county would contribute 3% of compensation and the employee would contribute 3% of compensation. In all other Nebraska counties, the county would contribute 2% of compensation and the employee would contribute 2% of compensation. That would help create a retirement system benefit for the county sheriff's department and county sheriff's deputies that is much more competitive with those that are offered by other Nebraska law enforcement agencies. With that, I'm looking forward to following the testimony on this bill. I know that there are several testifiers behind me that have a great deal of experience with the system, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. And I will be here to close.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, I have one. What's the reason for the 2 + 2 and 3 + 3?
We're increasing it up
Carve
by,
out?
we're increasing it up by 1%. That's
Okay,
currently,
for both. Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Okay, we'll move on to proponents of this bill. Do we have any proponents of this bill? We'll take your blue sheet. Welcome, if you'll state your name and spell it for the record.
Thank you. Sure. Neil, Neil, Miller, Miller. Members of the Retirement Committee, my name is Neil Miller. I've been the Buffalo County Sheriff for 32 years. As immediate past president of the Nebraska Sheriff's Association, I'm testifying in strong support of LB 160 on behalf of the Nebraska Sheriffs. I would first like to thank Senator Mike McDonnell for introducing this important bill, which would increase the contribution rate from 2% to 3% of compensation for supplemental retirement plans for county sheriffs pursuant to the County Employees Retirement Act in sections 23-2332 and 23-2332.01. The additional contributions made by employees shall be credited to the employee account, and contributions paid by the county shall be credited to the employer account, with each amount at a rate of 3% compensation instead of 2% as provided by current law. LB 160 is critically important to help the sheriff's departments across the state of Nebraska attract and retain our deputies. All local and state law enforcement agencies continue to have challenges attracting and retaining law enforcement personnel. The Nebraska Sheriff's Association sincerely appreciates LB 1241 and other legislation that was passed last year and the various proposals introduced this year to help keep the excellent officers that we have and to encourage other men and women to join our departments. Some of our agencies across this state are currently only 50% staffed, and we feel it is critical to do everything we can to try and attract and retain people to our profession here in Nebraska. I've handed out copies of the actuarial study done to determine the financial ramifications of LB 160. The report is entitled Cost Study for Additional Contributions to Nebraska County Cash Balance Plan. Essentially, the actuarial report indicates this bill would be revenue neutral. In closing, again, I would like to thank Senator McDonnell for introducing this bill and this committee for their work with it. Please advance LB 160 to general file. I thank you for your consideration. I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? Senator Clements.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ivo. Thank you, Officer Miller. Just wanted to clarify, you said you're from Buffalo County, but it sounds like this bill only is going to affect Sarpy County. Do you agree with that?
No, this bill would include 91 counties in the state of Nebraska, the way it's currently written. Sarpy is a little bit different because they have an additional percent on their retirement, but basically 91 of Nebraska's 93 counties are currently in the Nebraska Public Employees Retirement System. Only Lancaster and Douglas are not.
And there was a mention of the county contributing 4.5%. And then this would be an addition of how much to that?
1% to currently on each side, both on the county and on the officer.
So the county would be at 7.5 for law enforcement, then 4.5 plus 3.
And I'm not sure exactly what that number would be when you add them up, Senator, but that probably is correct, yes.
All right, so this will affect 91 counties.
Yes, sir.
I saw the 85,000 population in here in this bill. How does that play into the bill?
Senator, that some years ago, and Senator Davis, Sheriff Davis is going to, maybe he'll be a senator sometime. Sheriff Davis is behind me and he can testify. He has information on what happened when the Sarpy carve-out came, but there was legislation that was specifically introduced that allowed Sarpy County to have that additional percent because of the metropolitan area. And again, he plans to address that with you.
All right, fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Their proponents. You could state and spell your name for the record.
Jeffrey Davis, Jeffrey Davis. I have been sheriff in Sarpy County for 17 and a half years, and I've been in law enforcement in Sarpy County for 49 and a half years. And I actually know that your time is valuable, and I don't want to go over everything that Sheriff Miller said because we agree with that 100%. But I will add this to that. And it affects some of the other counties besides ours. But right now, to draw people, many law enforcement agencies have gone to a situation where you can laterally transfer over to another department. And in that lateral transfer, you're given credit for the time you've already worked in law enforcement. And I've lost over a half dozen people to the city of Omaha. And I can't help not believe that at some point, one of the things that they're told and that probably they have to listen to is the retirement system there is completely a defined benefit in Omaha, just like Douglas County, Lancaster County, the city of Lincoln. We don't have that. It's partially defined benefit because of the cash balance. But I said I've been there 49 years and I haven't been able to retire for quite some time. And so we need to work on our retirement. I think this bill does that. I will say one thing. When Sheriff Miller mentioned Senator Davis, I felt I just took a huge decrease in pay, I think.
Huge.
I note that for all of you. I do want to thank Senator McDonnell for bringing this forward. And if you have any questions, I can speak to Sarpy County a little bit, Senator. I know back in the late 80s, I think it was, and you probably have the dates in front of you, but my memory serves me. Sheriff Thomas, myself, and two other members of my department spent a great deal of time up here trying to get a bill passed for everyone like this bill is. And at the end, we just couldn't do it, and we had to put in the 85,000, which would only affect Sarpy County. That was the only way we could get it passed. And it did give us, allowed our commissioners to add some more to our retirement. So that is why there's a difference. But again, we badly need this bill to go through for recruitment purposes, retention purposes, and I'm sure the other 90 counties would tell you the same thing. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there proponents? If you could state your name and spell it for the record.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Iba and members of the Nebraska Retirement Systems Committee. My name is John Cannon, John Cannon, Joncannon. I'm the Executive Director of the Nebraska Association of County Officials, otherwise known as NACO, here to testify in strong support of LB 160. First, we'd like to thank Senator McDonnell for bringing this bill. We certainly appreciate his strong support of law enforcement. It's something that NACO in particular is aligned with perfectly. Also, I want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. So the reason that NACO is here and I'll just give a very brief primer, but I won't take up too much of your time. We are a Dillon's rule state, and what that means is that counties are political subdivisions of the state. We don't do anything. We don't have authority to do very much else beyond what is required or permitted by state law. And so when it comes to our retirement pay, that is something that of course is governed, and that's why we're here. But I will say the primary duties that counties are responsible for: roads, bridges, law enforcement, jails, courts, and elections. Those are really the big six big ticket items that we have. And obviously law enforcement is one of those things that is extremely visible in the community. A lot of people, if they don't take care of the law enforcement side of things, that they're going to find that their communities are not doing so hot, and they may end up not being in office. And so county officials, we recognize and support law enforcement as much as we can. This is a great step forward. As far as that is concerned, this is good for recruitment and retention. And so my portfolio is not for Buffalo or Sarpy counties, as the sheriffs in front of me were. My portfolio is for 93 counties. And I can tell you that the more rural counties that you get, the greater the difficulties that they have with recruitment and retention. Maybe on the recruitment side, young kids just out of the police academy might not be thinking about retirement, but certainly on the retention side or for those lateral transfers, they are going to be thinking about that. I would urge your advance of LB 116. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? Senator Clements.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Back to my previous question. In 91 counties, what would the total share of the county be under this bill?
I don't know that.
The percentage.
I don't think it's adding 3% total. I think it's adding 1% to the total, but I don't have the exact number. I will get that for you, sir.
What the current Senator McDonnell mentioned, a 4.5%. And I see in the bill that the smaller counties are going from 1% to 2%.
Yes, sir.
And so I would like to know somebody what the total is going to be. You're saying that your counties are supporting, your county commissioners are supporting this and asking for you to support this bill.
Yes, sir. And when we took positions on this was a unanimous vote of the NACO board.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Other proponents? Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Jim McGuire, Jimmagure. I'm president of the Nebraska Fraternal Order of Police, representing over 5,000 men and women in law enforcement. We are eternally grateful to Senator McDonnell for introducing this important bill. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the things that have already been stated, but I just want to be brief about some of this stuff. I never thought that I would be the young kid on the block. I only have 31 years of law enforcement experience. So listening to the two sheriffs over here, I hope that I don't have to work 49 years, but maybe that'll just have to be. But this bill here is a small but important increase to retirement contribution to assist not only with recruiting and retaining law enforcement officers, but helping them afford retirement. Retirement is very expensive, and anything that we can do to help them, we wholeheartedly support. The one thing that I always tell people getting into this profession, that it's essentially a young man's and young woman's game. I don't know if you want to have a bunch of 70 and 80-year-old men and women out chasing around a bunch of juveniles, because everything hurts at our age. But we certainly have been seeing some tremendous challenges when it comes to recruiting. And one of the sheriffs alluded to the lateral transfers. And I can tell you right now, it is, I don't want to say it's a problem, but you're seeing officers jump from one department to the next, and it's important for us to retain those folks. And if this is one more piece of the puzzle to keep them there, it would save their cost, because if they lose somebody, they just lost an officer with all of that training and experience, and now they have to hire, they have to go through the process of hiring somebody, and then they have to train them, and they're not real law enforcement officers for almost 9 months. You've got the training academy, and then they have to go through a field training academy. It takes a long time, and that's just to get them to the point where we think that they're safe on their own. But you really don't know anything until probably about 4 or 5 years on the job. So anything that we can do to help that out would be greatly appreciated. And we do think that this is one more piece of the puzzle to retaining these folks. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you for your testimony. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Other proponents? Are there any opponents? Anybody opposing this bill? Anybody in the neutral? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Ibach and members of the Retirement Committee. My name is Randy Gerke, that's spelled R-A-N-D-Y, G-E-R-K-E, and I'm the Director of the Nebraska Public Employees Retirement System, or EMPERS. I'm here to testify at the direction of the Nebraska Public Employees Retirement Board, the PERB, in a neutral capacity on LB 160. The PERB and EMPERS do not advocate for benefit enhancements for the plans we administer, so we cannot take a position on whether the contribution rate should be increased for law enforcement officers participating in the county plan. I would like to say, though, that the agency is here to help in any way that you would need us to if LB were to move forward. That concludes my prepared testimony. I would want to add just a couple things, though. Senator Clements' question on the contribution rates. Right now, the county folks contribute 4.5%, and then the employer matches 6.75%. So if you add a percent to all counties other than Sarpy County, it would go to 5.5 and 6.75. I'm sorry, 7.75%. That would be the contribution rates. I also would just like to add, there were a couple questions that had came up about timing, and if this needed to wait till the end of a calendar year or a plan year or what have you. I have checked with our contracted actuary as well as our record keeper emeritus who does the record keeping for the county plan, and timing is not an issue whatsoever, and so whatever you decide to do is just fine. And with that, I will conclude my testimony and happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Are there questions? Seeing none, I always appreciate your testimony. Thank you. Right, are there anybody else in the neutral position? If not, we'll ask Senator McDonnell to close.
Thank you, Senator Ibach. Glad to hear Sheriff Davis is thinking about running for Senate. So I welcome you. Yeah, trying to clarify a little bit. There's no fiscal note. And if you look at this and you can go through the idea of going from the 1% and not, maybe I was more confusing than helpful in my opening. So you have an 85,000 person population. You look at who's over 85,000. Well, it's definitely Sarpy. And then you look at Douglas and Lancaster. Well, they have a defined benefit. So we are talking about the 91 counties that are left based on the idea of below and above 85,000. But we are moving it up by 1%. But if you look at the fiscal impact versus the state, there's no fiscal impact. Based on the Nebraska Association of County Officials, they feel that 160s are not anticipated, LB 160, to negatively impact the county cash balance plan. And then we have the Nebraska Public Employees Retirement System. And they mentioned how they had Kavanaugh McDonnell Consulting LLC look into it, and there's no fiscal impact to MPERS based on this bill. So I'll get you more information as the committee, and I really do appreciate the people that are testifying. And this is a recruit and retention bill, and we have to make sure we're taking those steps for these officers when they serve to be competitive with their fellow officers throughout the state. I'll answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for the senator? Seeing none. Thank you very much. We did receive one letter online in support of 160, so that will be entered for the record. Thank you all very much. That concludes our hearing on LB 160. We'll now open on LB 103.
Thank you, Senator Ibach. My name is Mike McDonnell, M-I-K-E, M-C-D-O-N-N-E-L-L. I am introducing LB 103. This bill is considered a technical cleanup bill to address two concerns after the passage of LB 700 last year. One change is to adjust the effective date of certain provisions of LB 700. In the final version of LB 700, which had an emergency clause, there was a July 1st effective date. However, as the bill was signed by the governor and therefore became effective on March 4th, 2022, LB 103 would adjust the reference from July 1st, 2022 to March 4th, 2022. The second change is to correct an oversight of LB 700 by adding a third group by the definition of eligible school plan employee. New language in LB 700 refer to certified teachers that are covered by state code agency teachers association, SCADA, which represents the certified teachers employed by state agencies. Since the passage of LB 700, it has been recognized that there are a few teachers, my understanding is less than 15, that are not covered by SCADA, but who are employed by the Department of Education. As a result, LB 103 adds third category to eligible plan employee to include these individuals that are required to have a teaching certificate but are not covered by the bargaining agent SCADA. I believe that represents the representatives from MPERS will be following me to explain in further detail. I'm here to try to answer any questions.
Very good. Are there questions from the committee? Senator.
Thank you, Vice
Senator
Chair
Conrad.
Ibach. Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Senator McDonnell. I'm so glad that you brought this forward, and I think we had a chance just to touch base super quickly during bill introduction and committee firm up. But I actually had some of the teachers that were in this kind of category that were kind of caught between a rock and a hard place on their benefits reach out to me, and I think they'll really appreciate having an opportunity to maybe address that issue from the last go around, because they're working hard, they're doing important good things, and they're just kind of left without the opportunities to get these benefits. So I think it's definitely really meaningful opportunities. So just wanted to say thanks.
You're welcome. And knowing a little bit of the history of LB 700, it was just an oversight.
Very good. Seeing no other questions, is there anybody here to testify in the proponent?
Good afternoon again, Vice Chair Ibach and members of the Retirement Committee. My name is Randy Gerke, that's spelled R-A-N-D-Y, G-E-R-K-E, and I am the Director of the Nebraska Public Employees Retirement Systems, or MPERS. I am here to testify at the direction of the Nebraska Public Employees Retirement Board, or the PERB, in support of LB 103. The state of Nebraska is an employer under both the State Employees Retirement System of the state of Nebraska, commonly referred to as the state plan, and the School Employees Retirement System of the state of Nebraska, commonly referred to as the school plan. This creates unique issues when a person ends employment with a school district covered by the school plan and subsequently goes to work for the state, or vice versa, especially if that person has taken a retirement distribution. Nebraska Revised Statute 79-920 is designed to help address these situations. In 2022, the legislature passed LB 700 to update and codify these practices. LB 103 is a technical bill designed to amend Section 79.920 to codify the rules for a group of individuals not discussed in LB 700. The approximately 10 to 20 individuals addressed by LB 103 are not covered by the state code agency, Teachers Association, or SCADA contract, but are required to hold a teaching or administrative certificate for their position. These individuals have been participating in the school plan. LB 103 just codifies that practice. The Department of Education brought this situation to our attention after LB 700's passage. Additionally, LB 103 makes other conforming amendments to the law to document the date LB 700 passed with the emergency clause. I would like to thank Senator McDonnell for introducing LB 103. I would also like to thank the legal teams of both Retirement Committee and Empress for their input on the legislation. And I would be happy to try and answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you very much. Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. The other proponents? Any opponents? Anybody opposing this bill or anybody in the neutral? Seeing none, we'll ask Senator McDonnell to close.
I'll waive unless there's questions.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. That closes our hearing on LB 103. All right, that brings us to LB 658.
Thank you, Chair Eyeball. My name is Mike McDonnell, McDonnell. I represent Legislative District 5, South Omaha. I'm introducing LB 658. It is very a simple bill. It would increase the per diem with the per board members receive from a current $75 per day to $100 per day. This bill and following Bill LB 659 are designed to be shell bills to be utilized as a vehicle for other concepts should that be necessary as we progress through this year and into the next. When the bill was mentioned during the per board meeting, my understanding is that there was some definitely interest in this bill that become more than just a shell bill, of course. So we will have those discussions, but I'm here to try to answer any of your questions, and it's truly a shell bill.
Great, thank you very much. Other questions? When was the last time that this was adjusted?
Yeah, it hasn't been too long, 2017 maybe.
2017.
Inflation. All right, thank you very much.
Went from 50 to 75 in 2017.
Thank you. Seeing none, is there anybody here in the proponent category? Any proponents of this bill? Any opponents of this bill? Seeing none, and are there anybody in the neutral? No. So we will ask you to close. Sorry, I can't work through that.
I'll waive
faster.
closing unless
Okay,
there's
waive
questions.
closing. Thank you very much. That closes the hearing on LB 658. Now we will hear from Senator McDonnell. on
Thank you, Chair Eyeball.
659.
My name is Mike McDonnell, McDonnell. I represent Legislative District 5, South Omaha. LB 659, under current law, the per board has two non-public employee members that have either 10 years of experience in organizational management or 5 years experience in actuarial analysis. LB 659 would increase actuarial analysis provision from 5 to 7 years. Once again, this bill is intended to be a placeholder in case we need it going into the future.
Very good. Thank you. Senator Clements.
I only have 5.5 years of actuarial experience.
That's why we put it up to 7, Senator. But I will amend it to 5 years and 7 months.
You only get $55, not $75. Thank you, Senator McDonnell.
Thank you, Senator Clements. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, are there proponents of 659? Seeing none, are there any opponents of 659? No. And anybody in the neutral? Seeing none, we will close the hearing on 659. We did not get any letters of support or opposing. So thank you. That closes the hearing on LB 659.
And that closes our hearing for the day. Thank you everyone for being here.
I love these meetings.
Now you have some lunch left. You got some lunch here. You got a
Good having
45
you.